What happens when a member of the British royal family completely loses their composure on live television? You won't believe what unfolds when Prince Harry's carefully crafted public image crumbles in spectacular fashion during what was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance. This isn't just another celebrity meltdown. This is a full-scale confrontation that exposes the darker side of royal entitlement and leaves America's most beloved late-night host stunned into silence. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when Prince Harry's true colors are revealed on national television. The atmosphere at the Ed Sullivan Theatre felt electric as Prince Harry made his entrance onto the Late Show stage. The audience erupted in polite applause, but seasoned Colbert watchers could sense something different in the air. Stephen Colbert, ever the professional, rose from behind his desk with his trademark grin, extending his hand toward the Duke of Sussex. "Prince Harry, welcome back to the Late Show," Colbert said, his voice carrying its usual warmth. "Great to have you here. Again!" Harry's handshake lingered a moment too long, his grip tighter than necessary. "Stephen, always a pleasure," he replied, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. As they settled into their seats, the tension was palpable. Harry adjusted his tie repeatedly, a nervous habit that eagle-eyed viewers would later dissect frame by frame. Colbert launched into his opening questions with practiced ease. "So, you're here to talk about your latest charitable initiative, but I have to ask, how are you adjusting to life as a private citizen? It's been quite a journey from Buckingham Palace to Montecito." The question seemed innocent enough, but Harry's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well, Stephen, I think private citizen is a bit of a stretch when you're constantly being scrutinized by the media and, frankly, by shows like this one." The audience shifted uncomfortably. Colbert's eyebrows raised slightly, but he maintained his composure. "I mean, that's fair, but you did write a best-selling memoir. You've got the Netflix deal, the Spotify contract. You're not exactly hiding from the public eye." "Those are my choices," Harry shot back, his voice carrying an edge. "There's a difference between choosing to share your story and having it twisted and manipulated by people who don't understand the first thing about what it means to serve your country or your family." The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Colbert leaned back in his chair, recognizing the shift in dynamics. "I'm not sure I follow. Are you saying that discussing your public statements and actions is somehow unfair?" Harry's laugh was bitter. "What I'm saying, Stephen, is that there's a pattern here. You invite people on, you act all friendly and jovial, and then you twist their words to fit whatever narrative gets you the most clicks and views. It's exactly the kind of behavior that drove me away from England in the first place." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Colbert's face remained neutral, but those who knew him well could see the storm brewing behind his eyes. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether they were witnessing an uncomfortable moment or the beginning of something much more explosive. "I'm sorry, but I have to push back on that," Colbert said, his voice steady but firm. "I've always been respectful in our previous conversations, and I think if you look at the record, you'll find that I've given you plenty of opportunities to present your side of things." Harry leaned forward, his composure beginning to crack. "Respectful? You've made jokes about my family, about my military service, about my wife. You think that's respectful?" The mention of his wife seemed to flip a switch. Harry's hands clenched into fists on his lap, and his breathing became visibly shallow. The cameras captured every micro-expression, every telltale sign that this interview was spiraling into uncharted territory. Colbert maintained his professional demeanor, but his voice carried a warning. "I make jokes about public figures, including myself. It's what I do. But I've never crossed lines into personal attacks or disrespected your service." "Haven't you?" Harry's voice rose slightly. "What about the segment where you mocked my therapy sessions? Or when you called my decision to step back from royal duties running away? That sounds pretty personal to me. The audience was now completely silent, creating an almost suffocating atmosphere in the studio. Camera operators zoomed in on both men's faces, capturing every twitch, every flash of emotion. This was no longer an interview. It was becoming a confrontation, and everyone in the room could feel the tension reaching a breaking point. But what happened next would shock even the most seasoned talk show veterans. Colbert's patience was wearing thin, but he tried one more diplomatic approach. "Look, Harry, I think we might be talking past each other here. Why don't we focus on what you came here to discuss, your charity work?" Harry's eyes flashed with something dangerous. "Oh, now you want to change the subject? Typical. When things get uncomfortable, when someone calls you out on your behavior, you just pivot to something safer, right?" The host's jaw tightened. "That's not what I'm doing at all. I'm trying to have a productive conversation, but you seem determined to turn this into some kind of grievance session." "Grievance session?" Harry's voice cracked with indignation. "My grievances, as you call them, are about the systematic destruction of my family's reputation by people like you who hide behind comedy to spread lies and misinformation." The audience began to murmur, sensing that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Security personnel near the stage exchanged glances, unsure of their protocol for this kind of situation. The show's producers in the control room frantically debated whether to cut to commercial. Colbert leaned forward, his famous composure finally showing cracks. "People like me? Harry, I'm a comedian. I make jokes about public figures because that's literally my job. If you can't handle that level of scrutiny, maybe you shouldn't have written a tell-all book or given explosive interviews trashing your own family." The words hit Harry like a physical blow. His face flushed red, and for a moment it looked like he might actually stand up and walk off. Instead, he pointed an accusatory finger at Colbert. "How dare you lecture me about family loyalty? You don't know what it's like to grow up in that environment, to have every move scrutinized, every mistake magnified. You sit here in your comfortable studio making jokes about things you couldn't possibly understand. And you sit there acting like you're the only person who's ever faced adversity." Colbert shot back, his own voice rising. "Millions of people watch this show because they're dealing with real problems. Job loss, medical bills, actual struggles. And you're complaining about being wealthy and famous?" The exchange was escalating beyond anything either man had intended. Harry's hands were shaking now, whether from anger or adrenaline, it was impossible to tell. The studio audience sat, transfixed, many pulling out their phones to record what they sensed was television history in the making. "You think this is about money?" Harry's voice was barely controlled now. "This is about respect. This is about basic human decency. Something you clearly know nothing about." Colbert's eyes narrowed. "Basic human decency?" From the man who aired his family's private conversations on international television? From someone who's made millions off of family drama and personal grievances? The accusation landed like a haymaker. Harry's composure finally shattered completely. He shot up from his chair, his face contorted with rage. "That's it. I'm done with this charade." The sudden movement sent shockwaves through the studio. Camera operators scrambled to keep both men in frame as Harry began pacing behind his chair like a caged animal. Colbert remained seated, but his posture was rigid, ready for whatever came next. "You want to know about family loyalty?" Harry shouted, his voice echoing through the theater. "My family threw me under the bus the moment I tried to protect my wife from the same treatment that killed my mother, and people like you helped them do it." The mention of his mother's death sent a chill through the room. This had crossed from uncomfortable television into something genuinely disturbing. Colbert's expression shifted from anger to concern, but Harry wasn't finished. "Every joke you make, every snide comment, every time you mock what we went through, you're contributing to the same system that destroyed my family. And you do it with a smile on your face because it gets you ratings." The studio fell into an eerie silence. Even the audience members who had been recording stopped, sensing they were witnessing something too raw, too personal for social media consumption. But the damage was already done, and both men knew there was no walking this back. Colbert slowly stood up, his movements deliberate and controlled. When he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. "Harry, I think you need to take a step back and think about what you're saying. You're making this personal in a way that's completely inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" Harry's laugh was maniacal. "What's inappropriate is you pretending to be some kind of moral authority when you've built your career on tearing people down. You're no different from the tabloid journalists who hounded my mother to her death." The comparison hit Colbert like a slap. His face went pale, and for the first time in his career, he looked genuinely shaken. "That is completely out of line. I would never—" "Wouldn't you?" Harry cut him off, moving closer to the desk. "You sit here night after night, making jokes about people's pain, their struggles, their private moments. You think because you do it with a smile and a clever quip that makes it okay?" The audience was frozen, unsure whether to intervene or simply witness this unprecedented meltdown. Security guards had moved closer to the stage, their hands hovering, near their radios, ready to call for backup if needed. Colbert's famous composure was cracking. "I make jokes about public actions and public statements. I don't invade people's privacy or spread lies. There's a massive difference between comedy and harassment." "Is there?" Harry's voice was getting louder with each word. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're just another vulture, feeding off other people's misery. Just another parasite who profits from pain." The personal attack crossed every line of television decorum. Colbert's face flushed red, his hands clenched into fists. "You know what, Harry? You want to talk about profiting from pain? Let's talk about how you've monetized every family tragedy, every personal struggle, every private conversation you've ever had." "That's my story to tell," Harry roared, slamming his hand down on Colbert's desk. The sound echoed through the theater like a gunshot. "Those are my experiences, my pain, my right to share. And this is my show," Colbert shot back, his voice matching Harry's volume. "You came here as my guest, and you're attacking my character, my integrity, my life's work. You're way out of line." The confrontation had reached a fever pitch. Both men were standing now facing each other across the desk like prize fighters before a bout. The tension was so thick, it felt like the air itself might explode. Harry's next words came out as a snarl. "Your life's work is a joke, Stephen. You're a joke. You hide behind comedy because you don't have the courage to face real issues, to take real stands. You're a coward." The insult hung in the air like poison gas. Colbert's face went through a range of emotions: shock, hurt, rage, before settling into something cold and dangerous. "Get out," Colbert said quietly. "What?" Harry seemed genuinely surprised by the response. "I said get out." Colbert's voice was steady now, controlled, but there was steel beneath it. "This interview is over. You've crossed every line of professional conduct, personal decency, and basic respect. Get out of my studio." Harry laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you're the victim? Now you're the one being disrespected? That's rich, Stephen. That's absolutely rich." "Security!" Colbert called out, his voice echoing through the theater. The words seemed to snap Harry back to reality for just a moment. He looked around the studio, suddenly aware of the cameras still rolling, the audience staring in stunned silence, the security guards moving toward the stage. But instead of backing down, his rage seemed to intensify. "You think you can just silence me? Just like the royal family tried to do? Just like the British press tried to do?" Harry's voice was becoming increasingly unhinged. "I won't be silenced. Anymore. I won't be dismissed or pushed aside or told to just go away quietly." The security guards had reached the stage now, but they hesitated, unsure of how to handle a member of the royal family who was clearly having some kind of breakdown on live television. The moment stretched on, pregnant with possibility and danger, as everyone waited to see what would happen next. Harry sensed their hesitation and seemed to feed off it, his defiance growing stronger. "That's right. You don't know what to do with me, do you? Because I'm not just another celebrity you can push around. I'm not just another guest you can dismiss when things get uncomfortable." Colbert stepped around his desk, moving closer to Harry with deliberate intent. "You're a guest who has completely lost control and is making threats. Royal title or not, you don't get to come into my house and attack my character, my staff, and my audience." "Your house?" Harry's voice dripped with contempt. "This isn't your house, Stephen. This is a corporate studio owned by a massive media conglomerate. You're just another employee, just another cog in the machine that destroys people's lives for entertainment." The audience gasped at the brutal assessment. Some began to stand, unsure whether they should leave or stay to witness how this unprecedented situation would resolve. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every second of what was becoming the most explosive moment in late-night television history. Colbert's patience finally snapped completely. "You want to talk about destroying lives? You've spent years destroying your own family's reputation for money. You've turned private conversations into public spectacles. You've weaponized your own trauma and your mother's death to settle scores and make millions." The accusation hit Harry like a physical blow, his face contorted with rage and something that might have been shame. "How dare you bring my mother into this? How dare you use her death as a weapon against me?" "You're the one who brings her up constantly," Colbert shot back. "Every interview, every book, every Netflix episode, it's always about how the media killed your mother, but you're doing the exact same thing she did. You're using the media to fight your battles, to get revenge, to make money off family drama." Harry's response was immediate and explosive. He grabbed the water glass from Colbert's desk and hurled it across the stage. The glass shattered against the backdrop with a sharp crash that echoed through the stunned theater. "You don't know anything about my mother. You didn't know her. You don't get to use her memory to score points in some pathetic television argument." The destruction of property seemed to finally galvanize the security team. Two guards moved forward, but Harry spun toward them with wild eyes. "Don't you touch me! Don't you dare put your hands on me!" Colbert, shaken by the violence but determined to regain control of his show, stepped between Harry and the security guards. "This ends now, Harry. You've crossed every line. You've destroyed property, threatened my staff, and completely lost control of yourself on live television." "I've lost control?" Harry laughed maniacally. "I'm the only one here telling the truth. I'm the only one with the courage to call out this charade for what it really is." The studio erupted in chaos as audience members began talking among themselves, some heading for the exits, others pulling out phones to record the mayhem. The show's band members sat frozen in their section, unsure whether to play or flee. "The truth?" Colbert's voice cut through the noise. "The truth is you came here to promote your charity work, and instead you've had a complete meltdown because you can't handle basic questions about your public statements. The truth is you've shown everyone exactly who you really are underneath all the victim narratives." Harry's face went deadly pale. "Who I really am. I'll tell you who I am. I'm someone who refuses to be silenced by bullies and cowards. I'm someone who won't let my story be twisted by people who profit from pain." "Your story?" Colbert stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Your story is that you're a privileged man who can't take responsibility for his own choices. Your story is that you blame everyone else for your problems while cashing checks for tell-all books and Netflix deals." The personal attack was the final straw. Harry's composure shattered completely as he lunged toward Colbert, his face twisted with rage. "I'll show you what taking responsibility looks like." But he never reached his target. The security guards finally acted, stepping between the two men just as Harry's forward momentum carried him toward the host. "Get your hands off me!" Harry screamed as the guards gently but firmly restrained him. "This is assault! This is exactly what I'm talking about. You people think you can just silence anyone who tells the truth." Colbert stood his ground, breathing heavily but maintaining his composure as chaos erupted around him. "The only person who needs to be silenced here is you, Harry. You've shown your true colors to millions of people tonight." Harry struggled against the security guards, his face red with exertion and rage. "My true colors? At least I'm authentic. At least I'm real. You're nothing but a puppet, a corporate shill who thinks he's clever because he can read jokes off a teleprompter." The audience was in full panic mode now, with people streaming toward the exits as the confrontation reached its violent crescendo. Show producers were frantically signaling to cut to commercial, but the cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of Harry's complete breakdown. "Authentic?" Colbert's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "There's nothing authentic about attacking people who ask you legitimate questions. There's nothing real about throwing tantrums when you don't get the softball treatment you expected." Harry's struggles became more desperate as the security guards began moving him toward the stage exit. "You want real questions? Here's a real question. How do you sleep at night knowing you've built your career on other people's misery? How do you look at yourself in the mirror?" "I sleep just fine," Colbert replied coldly. "Because I know the difference between comedy and cruelty, between holding public figures accountable and destroying families for profit. Something you clearly never learned." The final insult broke something fundamental in Harry. He stopped struggling and stared at Colbert with pure hatred. "You think you've won something here tonight, don't you? You think you've proven some point?" "The only thing I've proven," Colbert said, adjusting his tie and returning to his position behind the desk, "is that privilege and titles don't excuse bad behavior. Money and fame don't give you the right to attack people who challenge you." Harry's laugh was bitter and broken. "Challenge me? You haven't challenged anything. You've just shown the world exactly what kind of person you really are. A bully, hiding behind jokes, a coward who can't handle real conversation." The security guards had reached the wing of the stage now, but Harry broke free for one final moment, turning back to face Colbert and the audience. His hair was disheveled, his face flushed, his expensive suit wrinkled from the struggle. "You people don't deserve the truth," he shouted to the audience, many of whom had stopped their exodus to witness his final outburst. "You're all complicit in this system. You sit there and laugh while people's lives are destroyed for your entertainment. The only person destroying anything here is you," Colbert called out, his voice carrying across the theater. "You came here as a guest and turned it into a circus because you couldn't handle being treated like everyone else." Harry's response was cut short as security finally managed to escort him off the stage, but his voice could still be heard echoing from the wings. "This isn't over, Stephen. People will see through your act. They'll see what you really are." The studio fell into an eerie silence as Harry's shouts faded into the distance. Colbert stood alone on the stage, his usually pristine set now bearing the scars of the confrontation. Broken glass scattered near the backdrop, chairs askew, the atmosphere heavy with tension and shock. He looked directly into the camera, his face serious but composed. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for what you just witnessed. That is not the kind of show we run here, and it's not the kind of behavior we tolerate from anyone, regardless of their title or status." The audience, those who remained, began to applaud slowly, recognizing that their host had maintained his dignity throughout the unprecedented attack. Colbert raised his hand to quiet them. "We'll be right back after this commercial break, and we'll try to salvage what's left of tonight's show." As the cameras finally cut away, the full magnitude of what had just transpired began to sink in. Prince Harry had completely destroyed his public image in the span of 30 minutes, revealing himself to be entitled, volatile, and utterly unable to handle criticism or accountability. The confrontation that was supposed to be a simple promotional appearance had instead become a masterclass in how privilege and entitlement can corrupt someone's character, leaving audiences shocked, and Stephen Colbert vindicated in his approach to holding public figures accountable, regardless of their royal status.